No bad language.
All right, all right, all right.
From the high plains of the Midwest, I bid you good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whatever your time zone might be. My nod to the late and great Art Bell. I'm Keith Sharp.
And I'm G. Dressel.
And we welcome you to Life After Life, a paranormal webcast where we talk about the paranormal, UFOs, or the unexplained. And the biggest question of them all, what happens when we die? Stay tuned.
We're back now with a tale that you have to hear all the way to the very last twist. A young boy who says he remembers things he couldn't possibly from a time long before he was born. That's according to his mom. She turned to experts of the mind for some answers. NBC's Cynthia McFadden tonight with the incredible story of what they found.
It's not unusual for little boys to have vivid imaginations, but Ryan's stories were legendary.
He said, Mom, I have something I need to tell you.
Reincarnation.
I think I used to be somebody else. And he started just telling me these stories about how he had lived in Hollywood. His stories were so detailed. It just wasn't like a child that could have made it up.
Ryan talked about dancing on Broadway, working for an agency, traveling the world, being married 5 times. He even said the street he lived on had the word rock in it.
And it would be, my last room was grander. I want to go back to my...
We're back now with a tale that you have to hear all the way to the very last twist. A young boy who says... We're back now with a tale that you have to hear all the way to the very last...
clip to start us off. If it's,
Was it on mute?
no,
The volume was
the fader was completely pulled down.
We
But
figured it out.
if we don't have problems like that, then
We'd be the easiest people to abduct ever.
Okay, so we're gonna do this clip real quick,
They
you
drive
guys.
by the planet and lock the doors.
All right, here we go. No. Wow.
Sounds like 2 different videos.
We're back now with a tale that you have to hear all the way to the very last twist. A young boy who says he remembers things he couldn't possibly from a time long before he was born. That's according to his mom. She turned to experts of the mind for some answers. NBC's Cynthia McFadden tonight with the incredible story of what they found.
It's not unusual for little boys to have vivid imaginations, but Ryan's stories were legendary.
He said, Mom, I have something I need to tell you. I think I used to be somebody else. And he started just telling me these stories about how he had lived in Hollywood. His stories were so detailed. It just wasn't like a child that could have made it up.
Ryan talked about dancing on Broadway, working for an agency, traveling the world, being married 5 times. He even said the street he lived on had the word rock in it.
And it would be, my last room was grander. I want to go back to my swimming pool.
But things got really strange when they picked up a book about the golden age of Hollywood.
She turns to a page and I say, that's me. That's who I was.
That's me.
Yeah.
But the man in the picture wasn't even a major star, just an unnamed extra with no lines in an old Mae West film. That's when Ryan's mother turned to this man, Dr. Jim Tucker, a child psychiatrist at the University of Virginia. For 50 years, the prestigious school has collected more than 2,500 cases of children claiming past lives.
And your conclusion after 15 years is what?
These cases demand an explanation, that we can't just write them off.
He's written about them in his book, Return to Life.
Had you ever given much thought to this whole idea of reincarnation?
No, ma'am. I grew up in a Baptist church. You know, that's not something that we were taught to believe in.
But with the help of a movie historian, the man Ryan pointed to in the picture was finally identified. His name, Marty Martin. And just like Ryan said, he was a former actor turned Hollywood agent who danced on Broadway, was married 5 times, and even lived on Roxbury Drive in Beverly Hills. In all, Dr. Tucker confirmed that 55 of the things Ryan said were true.
Of course, a lot of people are going to say, come on, this is the parent or somebody else feeding them information.
I mean, it's just inconceivable that the parents, for some reason, had done all that. This information wasn't on the internet.
But there was one fact the detail-obsessed scientist thought Ryan had wrong.
And he said he didn't see why God would let you get to be 61 and then make you come back as a baby. That looked like just an incorrect statement.
That's because Martin's death certificate says he was 59 when he died.
Since then, I've gotten information that the death certificate was actually incorrect, which would have made Martin 61 when he died. And Ryan was right all along.
Are you glad you've had this experience? Yes, I am.
A chance, he says, to live his own wonderful life. Cynthia McFadden, NBC News, Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Wow. Hey, what's this?
Now that was weird. That's
What's this?
if Dylan was in here, he'd have a microphone. That's the
Okay,
fader
got you.
for that, so I got him muted.
Got you.
All right.
Dude, that's freaking weird.
So that was very, very strange.
I read about that one, but I didn't. I've never seen that video.
Yeah, there's actually, and I could not find it. There's a documentary about that kid, and they actually take him to Hollywood, and he picks out the house on that street where he used to live.
Right.
Very, very strange. But anyway,
This whole episode is about to get real strange.
yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. So how is everybody? Good. I know I already asked that, but no one's said anything, I don't think.
I'm just glad. I'm just glad that we had a clear takeoff today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be right if we didn't.
Yeah. That's
Just clear takeoff.
We are YouTubers in training. So Pam, how was your week?
My week was awesome.
Good. Garrett?
I'm glad.
I'm too. It makes it easier for me when she has a good week.
Yeah, true. I had a really good week, man. It was Kennedy's birthday. She's 11. I can't believe it.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't either.
Happy birthday, kid.
I know. I just make me
Happy
feel
birthday, Kennedy.
old. Yes, she's probably watching right now. So, no, it was a good week. Had some time. Actually, had some time for once.
Yeah, you guys actually went on a little venture.
Excursion.
Yeah. And I had time to really think about this stuff and talk to people about it. So I'm excited.
So you paid no attention to your daughter's birthday?
No, not at all. Hey, I will tell you, because Pamela, you're from that area. We pull into Roman Nose. Okay, it's a state park, right, locally, and we park. And we're like, oh, cool, there's a trail right there. And the first thing we do, like 5 seconds in, is we find this really awesome, like, natural spring and, like, a creek. And we enjoyed it for a second. And we're like, okay, well, let's go adventure. And then we decided, okay, let's go back to it. Okay, so we went directly back on the same route and could not find it. So I was like, okay, well, let me go to my car. Let's find the car. And then, because we found it within, like, 10 seconds of being there. So we went back to the car, started again. And it took us another 30 minutes to find this thing. Like, for a second, we were like, dude, what the hell is going on? Cass was starting to freak out. She's like, did we just imagine that? And, of course, we had been listening to stuff about reincarnation the whole way up.
Parallel universes.
Kennedy was really starting to question reality at 11 years old. So.
That's funny.
But,
how about that?
That's cool. When'd you put that in?
That's been there ever since the beginning of time. No, because on my second set of pads is the outro, intro, and the other stuff. So I have to go over here, do a bunch of stuff to get it over there. So that's the reason we never use it.
Watch out! I'm starting to learn how to use these buttons now.
And then I think when it gets push that one when it gets boring.
I'm never gonna push that.
That's during our reading time. Anyway, this is actually Garrett's baby. as you know, last week I had a couple of shows I had to do.
Awesome, man.
And had we sold out. Yay.
Yeah.
And
you guys look great.
I had no time for nothing. Oh, yeah. And happy birthday, Melinda. It was her birthday yesterday.
Oh, happy birthday. You share a birthday with Kennedy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Isn't there somebody else you needed to say hi to?
Oh, God. You're going to put me on
From
the
work.
spot. Oh, yes. I have to find it up
Alita
here.
Ramirez.
Alita Ramirez from work.
I
Hello.
saw her in earlier.
I saw her today. I see her.
Hey,
I usually
and-
see her every day.
Hey, Mona.
Mona.
This is it. This
Thanks.
she said this is going to be the greatest show ever. And I was like, I literally was just telling, I was like, Keith, this is going to be the best show ever.
Yeah, he said that. And he's only saying that probably because he's the one that spearheaded this one.
No.
So
No, I like it because there's literally no answer. Like,
yeah, there's a lot of evidence, though.
there's a ton of evidence.
Ton of evidence. I mean, you can't deny it.
No, you can't.
Okay, Garrett. So this is your baby. So take it away.
Okay, well, I thought it was important to first go over like just a little general knowledge of it.
Yep.
Because even for me, like I was generally just reading about
And you
it.
should do like in 1653. Do like an OETA documentary.
Oh yeah,
From the BBC.
Yeah, very monotone. But no, I was, it's like anything. Every show we do, you look up stuff and you got to figure out, you got to sort through the BS, right?
Yep.
And so I'm glad you showed that video because everything I got is directly from the doctor that was presenting right there. I forgot what his name is. Jim something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyways, and he studied under this guy named Ian Stevenson who went to the University of Virginia back in like the 70s, and in his like late 30s maybe he shut up. Well, this is really important because they brought him on to chair the psychology program at UVA.
Right.
And so he actually resigned that position so that he could create what is now the center where they're studying reincarnation. And so this is the program that they've studied over 2,500 cases. So there's a lot to draw from. So I think it's important that we first talk about what reincarnation is, like the definition of it. It's called transmigration as well, and I can't even pronounce this word. Metempsychosis. In religion and philosophy, rebirth, which is what I've been calling it a lot, rebirth of the aspect of an individual that persists after bodily death, whether it be consciousness, mind, the soul, or some other entity, in one or more successive existences. In the 19th and 20th century, by the 19th century, the philosophers Schopenhauer and Nietzsche could access the Indian scriptures for discussion of the doctrine of reincarnation, which recommended itself to the American, and this word, dude, I'm telling you what. And these guys are like Henry David Thoreau, love him. But he was an American transcendentalist.
I see Walt Whitman's on there.
Yeah, Leaves of Grass.
Yeah.
That's my favorite book of all time.
That's the bridge I used to cross all the time.
Oh.
In Philly.
Oh, the Walt Whitman Bridge.
In Philadelphia.
Yeah, My Body Sings Electric. Love that. Okay. So, hey, honestly, though, this is how it ties into all of a sudden it's in America and folk and everything like that. So it was adapted by Francis Bowen into Christian metapsychosis. Psychosis, excuse me. By the early 20th century, interest in reincarnation had been introduced into a nascent discipline of psychology, which this is where it starts to become really important, largely due to the influence of William James, who you guys can look up and read about, who raised aspects of the philosophy of the mind, comparative religion, the psychology of religious experience, and the nature of empiricism. James was influenced in the founding of the American Society of Physical Research, ASPR, in 1885. So that was pretty, he's doing this stuff in 1885. We've obviously come a long way since then. I did add in here, I love this, that George Patton.
General George Patton?
Yes.
Yes.
West Point grad, no big deal.
No big deal.
He believed in reincarnation.
Yeah.
He thought he was reincarnated from General Hannibal, who was like a conqueror,
Well, maybe he was.
He could have been. In the 21st century, so currently we are up to 33% of people in America that believe in reincarnation.
I would think it'd be higher than that.
I think it is. No, I do. I think
I do
it is.
too.
Were you involved in that study?
No.
Were you, Pamela, involved in that study?
No.
Okay, so I think it's a lot higher than that.
I do too.
I mean,
We'll ask our audience here in a minute.
yeah, absolutely.
What they think.
Hey, we might be able to put a little survey up on Facebook too. Okay, so yeah, 33%, which was up from about 20% in the turn of the century. So 99, 2000, they were saying only 20% of Americans believed in it. Unfortunately, because the belief in reincarnation isn't popular held belief in America, oftentimes parents don't believe the kids, or if they do, they don't want to tell anybody, which makes a whole lot of sense. And is also a common thread we see in every paranormal show we do.
Yep.
This is interesting. The average interval between death and reincarnation is 4.5 years, according to the University of Virginia data.
Okay, I got to cut in on that one
Go
because
for it.
I'm just saying I've read, and when I did study reincarnation a long time ago, and they said the average was 100 years.
Right.
Was
This is from the University of Virginia data.
Well, this is the University of Keith.
Yeah. I know. I'm saying because they have 2,500 cases, so what they're trying to do is they're trying to put numbers to it.
Right, but wouldn't you hate to think that's all the time we get?
Oh, what? 4.5 years?
4.5
Well,
years.
there are cases though, and
Because there's no linear time.
Let's just hop into it then, because we had three. We picked some stories each, but there was one that I didn't choose that I really wanted to, where a little girl thought that claimed that she was from 1786,
Right.
or 1787, something like that, and so that would be a case where obviously 200, 300 years pass by, and so I don't think that's just the average for the data. Are you getting checked?
No, I'm just checking. Go ahead.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay, I don't want to.
No, it's just.
So I mean,
Speaking of reincarnation.
yeah. No, but I think that, and we'll get into it in a little bit. There's a lot of different schools of belief about how
I
exactly.
think it's up to the individual.
I absolutely. Do.
I hope it is, because I'm going to take like 600 years
Right.
off before I come back.
Yeah, but haven't we talked about time in the next life being
It's
much different?
well, there's no time.
So, right?
Yeah,
Or
but
no?
you know what's weird? It almost, and we can get into this later, but you talk about the parallel universes and things, but it's like the people are coming back and remembering in this timeline, in this
Right.
earth.
Yes.
So it almost kind of, does it mean that there is no parallel universes, or because
That's a good question.
Because couldn't they come back in a different parallel universe and not have a memory of the current one? Like
Right.
they wouldn't remember their
Ooh,
past.
that's
they wouldn't.
really
they
right.
wouldn't remember their past life because they were on a parallel universe.
They'd be in a different stream.
So it almost makes it look like that it's linear time here, and there's no other parallel universes around.
Man, that's deep.
That is deep.
That's super awesome too.
And I'm not even high.
No, that's fascinating, Keith.
Yeah,
Did you just think about that on the spot?
No, I thought about it driving home from work today. I
Yeah.
thought, no, wait a minute, because you and I both kind of believed in the parallel universe thing,
Right.
But then I hear about all these kids who say, well, we're from a different time, and they actually go back and they find that person would mean that they were in this timeline. So,
And their soul would have to find that.
right. So it'd
They're
be
cyclical. Yeah.
yeah. So, that could kind of put a
Yeah. No.
I mean, it doesn't, but it's just, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Because this is what Cass and I were talking about last night. Ultimately, we have no idea what the soul does after the body's dead.
Right.
We have no idea the decisions that we get to make or are afforded to make, or the path that we go. Right. So
They say it's up to us, and we can stay on the other side as long as we want. But they always say eventually you have to come back. But then that brings up a whole thing to me, like, this is a precursor to what? What are we striving for? I mean, I've never met anybody.
I think
I've
that
never met anybody who reached nirvana or whatever. I mean, a perfect
of course,
person.
Of course, because if you have found somebody whose soul has reached nirvana, then I believe that they will be liberated. So the more times
how
you
long
come
does
back-
that take?
Well, who knows? Nobody knows. I mean, the soul knows. And so there's no way that you or I can tell whose soul has been reincarnated into us, right? I mean,
Yeah. Well, I always wondered if you could come back, like, and this goes into the parallel universe thing, is like, okay, say I love my life that I lived. I made some mistakes, and I'd rather actually come back as me in that same timeline, you know what I mean, and relive it again, but change some things.
Right.
But I don't, who knows if that's the way it works or not.
Yeah, this actually is kind of coming up in the chat right now. Tina Monroy has made a statement. Says people can reincarnate anytime, but are coached by the elders to wait a 10-year period since they last passed. Can't come back any sooner, otherwise you wind up with some of the previous lifetimes problems here. So that kind of seems like it goes along with what you're saying.
It also, like, to that point, is that it goes back to what you're saying about making decisions. Because I feel like some people would make the decision to reincarnate quicker, right? Either out of impulse or because what they need to fulfill is immediate, so therefore they need to be closer to the family.
What about this too? I read a case where a kid said when he died in the accident, he automatically jumped into a baby. So there was like no time.
Maybe in his perception, of that. I mean, go ahead.
Well, basically our memories, I guess our memories wiped, which kind of makes it a little bit.
Apparently not.
Well,
yeah. Okay,
well,
we'll
yeah,
get into that.
But it's rare. These cases are. I mean, I don't know. So I don't have any nothing of a past life that ever pops up.
I know, but Pam and I were talking about something interesting before this, where like I was asking her about is if something was paranormal. She's like, well, what was going on? Maybe it was. I didn't. And so there's another thing too. Like, what if? And I talked about it in the little live video I did last night. Like, are there environmental impacts on these cases? Like, are kids in so much turmoil or their parents not recognizing it, and then they get to school age and it gets wiped out because of everyday life?
Yeah.
So you could have, right?
Yeah,
right. I mean, and that's what it seems to be. Is like when you're born, you still have that. You're kind of still to that spirit world a little bit, and then it fades away as you get older. Another interesting thing I've found that some of these reincarnations, a lot of them, not all of them, are usually people that when they're reincarnated, they're only like maybe a few miles from their past life, where their past life was.
Right, sometimes.
So that's kind of odd too.
Yeah.
Like that the case in India.
125 miles.
Yeah, but still, I mean, why
when
not?
You consider the whole planet,
Right,
125 miles.
It's not very far. That's what I'm saying. But I've read cases where it was literally, 30, 40 miles from
20
where
miles, right? Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And like Pam said, why not? Say you're in America, you're going to go to England or something this time. I'm going to be English kid or whatever.
Yeah. Well, it goes. Go ahead, Pamela.
Oh, I'm just. Chat's really getting active in this.
All right.
Mona's saying, some say we all remember something about our past lives as young children, but most forget. We either forget or suppress the thoughts. Tina says no one has to come back. It's a choice. Nirvana is the end of the cycle. Discussion about coming back as animals.
I saw elephant and dolphin.
Yeah.
Mel wants to be a dolphin.
Interesting.
Many theories out there, and as you know, some young people are called old souls.
Right. They've had more lives and more experience, and but I mean, getting back to what we were talking about earlier, I just wonder, like, it's a precursor to, I mean, like what's the average life before God says, or the energy or whatever says, okay, you're good,
right?
But then
I think
what
it's
is
free
your
will. And I think what they're saying is like the same thing as free will, like you decide. And so, for instance, I saw that, and it was kind of like a monotone video. This guy, it was like a 7-minute video, and he was on a whiteboard, and he sounded like Werner Herzog, and he was explaining his thoughts on reincarnation. No, it was actually super fascinating because that's how I learned best. So I was like sitting there watching it, and it was cyclical. Okay, and every time the soul would come back down, he had them attached to people like loved ones. Okay, so like we're family.
That's a common theme.
We would be attached, but the more I come down, the more liberated I become. I mean, I might start to become a distant cousin, right? And so the looser the chains become. And so until you're fully liberated person, your soul is, and then you can go on into the cosmos.
And then what?
Okay, so well, no. I mean, we're gonna talk about this stuff.
Yeah, you know what? This I mean, there's so many other things I wanted to talk about too.
Hey,
go ahead and get through.
Yeah, hey, remind me later to
narration.
tell you about what happens after that when we become dust. Okay.
Oh,
okay.
awesome! That would.
And we make friends with other dust particles.
That's right.
Okay. So before I was really interrupted by Keith, and we went down this amazing rabbit hole. According to the University of Virginia's data, the average to death to reincarnation is 4.5 years. The shortest interval that they've encountered has been 16 months.
Okay.
Which is freaking really quick turnaround.
Not enough time.
And 70 excuse me, Jesus Christ, 70% of these cases, these 2,500 cases that he mentioned it. Did you hear that when they pulling out the file cabinet and like University of Virginia has studied over 2,500 cases.
Right.
So that of those cases in that file cabinet, 70% of them of these people died of unnatural means.
Okay.
So murder or suicide
Right.
or car wreck, something tragic.
Yeah,
And that's something
I
else.
remember reading a case or watching a case about a family that had two young daughters, I believe, that died.
Were they twins?
No.
Okay.
They died in a house fire, I think.
Okay.
Or maybe a car wreck. I can't recall. But they lost both daughters at the same time.
Okay.
And then, like 8 years later, they did have a set of twins.
Oh, that's my story.
And
Stole my story.
And yeah, and the
Well, you
twins.
can get in detail about it.
Yeah. Sorry, I'll stop now.
No. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean-
It is, and there's
Well,
just
the fact that it's unnatural, though, I think is like the major point there, because that goes to show you that it almost does seem to be a correlation, a decision being made,
yeah.
right?
Well, and it does, and it to me, that case in particular really ties into that soul group, to quote a friend of ours,
That's
Amber.
Back within
Yes.
the family, right?
That we go back into. I mean,
Right.
and these two young souls obviously went right back into the
I know.
exact same family, the exact
Yeah.
same
Hey, well,
nuclear family.
While we're at it, I mean, let's go ahead and talk about that case while we're at it. I mean, we might as well, and because the reason why I added that is because they did go back into the family, which is pretty rare.
Right.
I mean, it's not. Excuse me. I shouldn't say it's rare. Like it happens, but for them to reincarnate right back into from the mother, like immediately, because 8 years for them was immediately.
Right.
So they actually had memories of that the two sisters. They even like to play with the same toys.
Yeah.
I mean, that's unbelievable.
Yeah, a lot of similar characteristics,
Right.
and mannerisms,
Right.
and the whole, yeah.
So on the shorter interval, you says it's less than 16 months. 70% of that time, the person died of unnatural means.
That's 1,750.
That
people.
brings up interesting conversation, because then you think, okay, so this, you think everything was meant to be, but that almost makes it sound like, oops, that was an accident.
Sorry about that.
Oops, sorry about that. That was not supposed to happen.
Dinosaurs were accident.
Right. Well, yeah.
Like.
So is that another thing you think maybe is we talk about having free will here.
Yes.
That old saying about, well, it was supposed to happen,
Right.
But almost in this case, it sounds like that's not the case.
Like we're
Accidents
rolling the
do
dice.
happen. It's like, oh man,
Yeah.
you got to go back, dude.
Yeah. Well, because I mean, to think that like, God, I hate to even say this right now, but like we have an accident, like a car accident or something. To think that somebody else's decision that they made, say it was a drunk driver or something, like that was planned out. To me, I can't wrap my head around it. Anyways.
Yeah.
So like that's why it's interesting with this, because it does seem like when you do pass over to life after life, is that you have a path that you can take. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because I was talking with Cass about it last night. Is that when somebody decides that they want to be an evil entity? Because she was like, well, what happens to evil people that reincarnate? And I said,
Yeah.
they wouldn't, because in their soul they would think that it was fulfilled, right?
But there's a whole also school of thought that you chose that person. Like, for instance, this sounds crazy, but I read this book and I can't remember what her name is. I was thinking about trying to contact her to be a guest, when we first started the program.
Right, yeah.
And it was like, how did she say it? let me get back to it.
Okay.
I mean, because I'm not sure I want to bring
Well,
it up. I don't want to bring it up just yet.
Well, my point was this: is that like if you decide that you want to reincarnate, I'm not saying that somebody that's done something evil can't reincarnate.
Well, okay,
What
I'm
saying
just going to go ahead and
freaking damage their soul. So
yeah,
they're not.
I'm just going to.
Okay,
I'm just going to go say it. So basically, what she thought. Let's say if you came down here, you were murdered or something like that. That you actually on the other side, you chose this person to murder you, so you could go through that experience.
Oh, okay.
And
wow,
so
that's interesting.
And she said the soul came, the being came before her. She's with her guide. She's writing her story for Earth. And this guy's saying, I love you so much that yes, if you want me to come down and murder you so you can go through this experience for Lord knows what.
Jesus.
That's what she believes. She believes we choose every character in our story, whether it's your wife, sister, kids, which becomes that soul group thing.
Right.
But there are extras, is what she made it sound like. So if I wanted to be, I wanted someone to bully me.
You're my extra.
Yeah.
I wanted to have a podcast, so I came down here. Right? Is that essentially what you're saying?
Sounds insignificant, though. I'm a little more important than an extra.
No, but I'm trying to wrap my head around it. So like you would create your own scene.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah, and it gets crazy because let's just, and I always bring this up to Pam, the Manson murders. Okay. Sharon Tate's mother, and I don't blame her, never forgave those guys who killed her daughter.
Yeah, forget about it.
Never forgave Tex Watson, Charles Manson. Now
I would not feel bad about that, but go ahead.
Right, but what that life lesson could have been, according to this lady,
I get that,
is that my mom needs to learn forgiveness for maybe something that has horribly happened, to be able to let go of that, to be able to forgive. So I'm picking Tex Watson, you're going to kill me.
Created
this crazy.
Yep.
And this is all going to be for my mom. I'm doing this for my mom because she needs to learn forgiveness for the most brutal act
That's
that could
definitely
be.
an interesting. It's like a reverse way to look at it.
So then, that spirit of Manson or whatever goes, yeah, I'll come down as this crazy psycho because I care about you, and that's what you want to go through. You're trying to help your mom.
I'll sacrifice my entire life.
I'll sacrifice my life. But then I told Pam, I said, well, okay, we know Doris, that's her, Doris Tate, never forgave. So does that mean Sharon has to come back, get murdered again? I mean,
here we go again. I got you.
Until the mom learns forgiveness. I mean, at a point I'd be going, Mom, okay, enough already.
Right.
I'm tired of being stabbed to death.
Yeah,
or whatever.
I get it.
So, but
that's an interesting way to look at it.
But that was kind of her theory, and so I kind of looked at it like, because you think, why did that happen? What a horrible thing,
right,
for someone to have to go through. But it could be her lesson was for not just she came down and became an actress, but she would have done this just for her mom to learn,
right,
for that soul to learn how to forgive.
Whew.
But
that's
how
heavy though, man?
Yeah, but how long? I mean, but then again, then you start thinking about it. We know Doris Tate died. We've never forgiven those two individuals. Right. So does that mean, again, I'm just repeat myself. So does Sharon, how many times does Sharon have to come and die before mom learns this forgiveness? If that is the case, and it's all speculation.
No, that is.
We have no idea.
Well, because and for me, I'm glad that lady has brought that up, and that's a different mindset. And I can't say that's not true. Obviously, none of us can.
Well, none of us can. Yeah.
Right. But I'm glad she brings it up. But for me, this is such a reincarnation seems like it's such a personal thing, like it's for your own soul. So I don't see the point for me in that theory, sending Sharon Tate down over and over to try to get somebody else's mission accomplished. So I feel like if you're being reincarnated, it's for your own soul's purpose, not somebody else's. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but you could volunteer. But I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Hell no.
Well, no.
See ya. I'm like,
because
I'm gonna fly around like a bird.
The school of thought is there's like soul groups. In other words, you, me, Pam, we all have been in some type of story in our past lives, but we've been together.
For sure.
I might have been Pam's wife. She might have been my husband.
Right.
You may have been my brother.
Yeah.
But usually they say soul groups. Usually they all stay together for this, and they're all to learn. Lessons like, okay, Garrett, what do you want to learn? Why do you want me in your life this time? What can I do to help you, and what can you do to help me?
That's interesting.
So it's like it's all planned. So I believe also, if that's the case, I think, a lot of times they say deja vu, is proof of reincarnation. But what if it's a proof of you just remembering, oh yeah, I wrote that part of the story.
It could be.
I'm supposed to be here.
Deja vu would be a really interesting topic.
Oh,
Let's
absolutely.
put that down for sure.
Yeah.
No, because it does call into question all those things.
Because I think deja vu could be possibly
I have said
you're
it.
remembering what you wrote
Absolutely. And I've said it on multiple episodes. You guys can go back and watch it. I'm a selfish bastard. Okay. So when I'm like going at this stuff,
You heard it directly from his mouth.
yeah. I mean, I love you guys. I feel like you are my soul group in this life. But I feel like my soul, what's best for you guys is for me to take care of my soul. Because if I'm taking care of my soul, then I'm naturally going to be better for you guys. Does that make
Right.
sense? So whenever I'm thinking about reincarnation, I'm thinking about it on an individual level. Like even with my kids, as much as I love them, I know that like, okay, I got to take care of my soul because that will allow for me to love them the best that I possibly can.
Right.
And if something tragic were to happen and that was to be cut short and that wasn't my plan and I didn't feel like that I had been able to give them that, then I could hopefully reincarnate in some point in their life. And so, yeah, it's just two sides of the coin. That's what I was telling Cass earlier when we were talking about it. It's just, there's so many different ways of looking at it. So
I wonder how you know if you're an old soul. Like I kind of think that once you, and nothing against Christians or anything like that, but you start try to think beyond what the Christian belief is. Like, this doesn't make sense to me. Some of the Bible or whatever.
Right.
So you think outside of the box.
Yeah.
And so you know what I mean?
Man,
Does
I got
that
this,
make sense?
No, it does because I got into this whole discussion. There's this artist. I call him an artist because he really is. His name's Lil Dicky. Okay, and he has a song called Pillow Talk.
I'd not want to be called Little Dicky.
He's amazing. He's a rapper.
I could be called Little Richard.
No. His little sign is this. Little Dicky. But he has a song where he's having this like philosophical discussion with himself. He's playing like a female. And they're pillow talking, and it goes about dinosaurs and aliens and all this stuff. And she's like super Christian, and he's Jewish,
Right?
Which Jewish people? There's a very small percentage of Jewish people believe in reincarnation. Okay,
Yeah.
like there's sects, right? But he's like talking to her, and that's when Cass and I started talking about reincarnation is during the song, and about religion. And what I was trying to explain to her is, for me, like religion is almost like a practice. Like it's just a discipline. That's all it is. And so no offense taken, right? Like if you say that about
No.
because that should be your
Most religions they're rooted in peace and love.
well, and they're rooted in
whatever it is.
exploration,
Yeah.
trying to prove something. Like, and so I think that like going down this path is like such an important thing for everybody. Like, especially our soul group, which that would be a cool band name.
Soul Group.
Yeah. If you ever want to start a reggae band,
The Soul Group band.
I'll be in it with you.
Yeah, reggae.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, go ahead and get back.
This might be a 15-hour show, dude.
No, but yeah, I mean, but just
It's amazing.
it's
It's fascinating.
See this, and I want you guys, please start talking about it. Is there anything?
They are. They are.
And not only that, ask questions. And Pam, if you see anything that that looks interesting, then bring it up. Cut us off if you need to. I do see my name somewhere.
You know
up
what's
there.
funny is we got off on that tangent. Literally before I go on to my next set of notes, all it says is cases have been found in every continent besides Antarctica.
So there's no reincarnation. There.
Well,
I saw the same lecture. I saw part of it before I started going. No, I'm just teasing.
But I mean, there's cases that are being reported.
Right. But
okay.
But didn't he say he never studied Antarctica?
They haven't studied Antarctica. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So, in 200 cases covered by Ian Stevenson, who you guys can go look him up. He's a badass. He's the one I was talking about earlier. And 200, and he like what I like about him is, and this guy said it is like his books. If you look at his title, he has like 30 of them, but it's like 200 cases that would suggest reincarnation. Like he would never say like it was for certain, right? And so in one of his books, 18 of the cases involved 2 birthmarks, which would involve like an entry wound and an exit wound for like a gun.
Right.
interesting.
Right. So, like in one of the cases, in Thailand, I think I actually talked about it.
But they did the research and found out this guy was shot in the head or something.
Yeah, so they're able to try. These are 200 verified cases of reincarnation that would suggest reincarnation, where the female is actually able to recall this young girl. She had a birthmark on the back of her head and a birthmark up here.
Yep.
Her statements that she was making, they were able to track this guy down who happened to be a teacher. So he was a teacher in a pretty populated area, and she came from a village. And so this is it's gender. Okay, so it's a different gender, which is interesting. So this guy was a teacher, and on the side was also a gangster, because I guess that's how they do it in this part of Thailand. And so he had like a bunch.
Interesting.
Yeah, he was having affairs. He was selling drugs and then teaching kids, and he got whacked on his way to school one morning. On his motorbike, somebody came up behind him, boom, shot him in the back of the head, and this girl actually knew all this. Like, she knew where to go, she knew the town name, and she had an exit wound. An entry wound and an exit wound, which is interesting because they never released the autopsy, but through their investigations, they were able. The sister talked to the doctor. And the doctor said, yeah, he got shot in the back of the head, and there was an entry here and an exit there. And so when this girl comes and has these birthmarks and knows all of them, knows the family by name, and she's calling them like sister, and she's 5, and they're like in their like 30s.
Why would that happen though? I mean, why do you think the reason would be like if we carry a scar with us?
Verification.
Yeah, but most people aren't gonna. I mean, like you said, 30% people believe in it. I mean, for hundreds of maybe a million people have scars, right? Or birthmarks. I mean,
right.
sorry.
Yeah.
Like Dylan has one right here. So
Cass has one. Yeah.
Yeah. So is that like a stab? I mean, and also it's usually a sign of traumatic injury. Like, so it's not just a gunshot; it could be a stab wound,
absolutely.
something like that. But
a car wreck, which we'll talk about in a little bit.
Right. Yeah. I just wonder why we would carry that over. I think for your most normal person, they're never going to look at a birthmark as, oh, this must have been from,
Well, no, of course. But okay, so imagine how difficult it is for energy or a spirit to communicate through a K2 meter, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, when I think about reincarnation, I think about how confusing and difficult it might be to re-enter. If you have to do it as a baby, you have a very small window before shit gets real. Because it's life on Earth, right?
Right.
And so I think that there's just a short window for you to be able to make these connections. And then once you make the connections, then you can begin to fulfill what your mission is. So you would want there to be a reminder of some sort.
Right.
I think. Hey, while we're on this, can I ask you guys real quick? I have I've known it to be a birthmark my whole life. Its nickname is Harry. Okay, he talks to the kids. Cass is like, that's a mole, but I was born with it. Is that considered a birthmark?
No. That's like a skin.
But I was born with it.
So I think, aren't we born? Well, Marilyn Monroe was born with Robert De Niro.
Well, the reason I asked this is because
I don't think that's a birthmark. I think that's when you had that odd darkening or something.
Here's why I asked. I asked for a reason because I've mentioned it on previous shows where I had a reoccurring dream as a young kid where I was
drowning.
No, that was later in life. Okay. When I was a young kid, I had a reoccurring dream that I was in an old cabin surrounded by my family. I was in a coma state, and everything I was thinking in my head, I was actually saying out loud, but I had no control over it, which for a young kid can be freaking terrifying, right? And so I was like, man, did I get a shot? And back in the 1800s. So now that I've gone down this path,
what do you think, Pam, on a mole? I mean, for me and Pam being medical people,
yeah,
I'm saying,
come on, just
thumbs down.
Well, and the thing about it is, has it always looked
it's exactly the same? It's never changed. It's been the same.
Well, that's good because it gets cancer.
I know. It's hairy.
Yeah.
Everyone's always like, why you shave that? I'm like, Harry does not want a haircut.
Now people are throwing up.
It's possible. It's unusual.
Well, it is unusual. Okay, and that's the point because let me get on to my next point.
Okay, go ahead.
In parts of Asia, there is a practice of marking the body before burial, so the mark will carry over to the next life. And there are 38 recorded cases of this. Okay, so marking the body, and they. It's gonna be like episode 1000. I finally just murder
Beat
you with it. We're like, dude, we have 1 million followers. Keith, reincarnate, hurry.
Then it goes viral.
Yeah.
I'll sacrifice. That's what I came here for.
Yes.
That's my life thing, is for you to get at least 1 million views on something, right?
Okay, so in parts of Asia, it is traditional for them to practice marking you before a burial.
Okay.
For instance, okay, the woman with heart surgery reincarnates as her sister's child. Mm-hmm. Have you heard about that one? Mm-hmm. Okay. She has a birthmark, and again, this is me taking notes while I'm driving. Okay, so
while you're driving,
yeah, dude, has birthmark on the back of the neck where the deceased friend had marked her with lipstick. Okay, so here's what happened. Now that I'm reading, okay, so this lady had congestive heart failure. Okay, as a younger person, when she was 20 and at university, she ends up needing open heart surgery. She dies in surgery. Okay. Mm-hmm. She lived in a village like 100 miles away. And so her 3 friends, they prepare her body. They say, we'll prepare her body. And in Buddhist culture, mm-hmm. they will, what's it called when you burn?
You what?
Cremate.
Cremate. Yeah, Jesus Christ. They cremate. Well, you become cremated. Okay.
Right.
So what her friends did was they made 3 marks on the back of her neck with lipstick, and then prepared her body and cremated her. She marked her with lipstick. She also had a birthmark on her. Oh, okay. So then the girl is reincarnated. Stop.
No, I'm not. I wasn't going to hit that. I was actually just pushing that down. This thing.
Okay, so this girl is born. Okay, like in this village.
Okay.
And she has a birthmark going down her chest, right? And it's very faint. It's like just a faint white line. And she also has the lipstick birthmark on her neck, and she recalls the tragedy itself and everything like that.
So you think these are reminders, not necessarily imperfection of life? Because
right,
because that would be some type of, it's like, okay, this isn't all that perfect then if we're actually, we hadn't worked that part out yet.
Yeah.
We can't, you got shot and have the shotgun, we're trying to work this.
Well, and I will say, the thing on the back of the neck or the back of the head, it's real common for newborns and up to, 2 or 3 months to have that. It looks like a rash.
Which
it looks like dermatitis,
They initially ruled that out.
That they have developed that rash on the back of their head. His old wife's term is to call it stork bite, because that's where the stork carries the baby until they deliver it.
Right.
That's true, though, isn't it?
Yeah. So they
stop it.
They in the story they mention that. So they say that like a lot of times these birthmarks on like the necks and stuff, they try to find something else. So that's why it was really important that she had the line that was as she was growing was going away, which is kind of weird. And so
if you started perfecting your life and then the things started fading and fading,
that's what happens. I said that's why I think that we have a short window, because we get down here and it's like, oh shit, we're back.
So if it gets worse and you're like, damn, I'm not doing good.
Well, you forget because you become our memory. It's so tough to reincarnate.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's important for obviously there to be discussions about it. So to add to the bizarre nature of the story, the little girl asked to be called by her last life's name, which I can't pronounce. And so when she was born with the scar again, and this is before they were investigating her, she was asking to be called by this other lady's name. And they're like, weird, right? The parents are like, no, stop. Your name's like Elizabeth. And she called her mom the word for sister in their language, and did the same for her grandparents and cousins. So she would like call you like brother and you sister. She's like your kid. They're like, she's obviously okay. There's something wrong with her language. She's figuring it out, whatever. And then to add to the validity, Dr. Stevenson tracked down the friend who marked the woman with the lipstick and brought her to meet the little girl who had never met or heard of her, and was able to greet her by her name upon first sight. So the girl that actually did the markings went to the village. Dr. Stevenson found her. It's like, okay, this is going to add some validity. Takes her there. Right when she walks in, the lady's like, "What's up, Susan?" And the girl's like, the woman who's like now 30, like, oh my God.
Wow.
Okay, so pretty interesting stuff. 3/4 of the kids that are studied will recall their deaths in their past life. Most of them are able to recall certain people and events that happened towards the end of their past life.
That's a lot. 3/4?
Yes, that's 75%. That's a lot of kids. So, but that goes back to what we were saying previously in the conversation, where you have a short window to kind of get that message out to people, and if they want to suppress it or not believe it, then you're kind of screwed. So, have fun for the next 80 years. 20% of kids talk about events which happen between lives, like hanging around the family or watching their own funeral. Oh yeah, again, I guess so. 20% of kids in their studies remember what's happening between lives. Okay, so I got 2 stories about that.
20. Okay.
2 quick stories. But it's 20% that are remembering. That's pretty significant amount. So it's not 3/4, but so they like hanging around their family while, like, so if I pass away, you guys are doing a show without me, and I'm like hanging out in the chair and being like, dude, this is my part. This is what I'm right. So that, and then watching their own funeral. There's a story of a Thai girl who when she reincarnated, like her mission, because in her past life she wanted to be cremated, and then her ashes actually dug in beneath this boa tree in Thailand. But whenever she was cremated, her daughter went to go bury her ashes, and the shovel kept getting stuck because the root system was like massive. And she's like, shit. So she's like, okay, well, next best thing, I'll just spread them around. So she spreads them around. So then this little girl reincarnates like 4 years later, and all she can talk about is how mad she is that her daughter in her past life didn't spread her ashes the right way.
I think that'd be the least of your worries.
Yeah, but I mean, in her culture, she wanted to be, she knew she was going to reincarnate. She wanted to deal with other things, not her daughter doing it the wrong way.
Yeah, and I believe whatever your culture is, even when you die, I think you still have those beliefs.
Right, and so
that was just important to her, and just it can get done.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and we'll talk about carrying on beliefs and stuff in a little bit. The other story, really quick, that I found was very interesting. I mentioned it earlier. A girl, it believes that she is from 1787, 1680, somewhere.
Oh, she got a long break.
Yeah. She did.
That'd be me.
Right. Yeah.
I'm coming back when the cars are flying.
Yeah. No, I have like a surprise kid, and I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like 50. I'm like, God damn, it's Keith. Starts talking about Keith. You came into the wrong life, dude. No, so that girl specifically, what was interesting about her was that she remembered this shilling with King George on it, which was very rare. It was extremely flat, had round edges to it. And so her mom was like, all right, let's test her. American girl, right? Let's test her. And so she brings out this thing, and it's like all these coins that were used, all these shillings for like 200 years. And the girl's like, that one. And it was the one. She's able to match it with the actual year.
Wow.
And what she would say was that she remembered becoming dust. Okay, dust out in the cosmos, and that when she became dust, she was actually making friends. Every other dust particle was friendly to her until she found the light and was reborn into this life.
So, does that mean if we cross in the light, boom, we go right in?
Well, I think that there's a decision there.
I hope not.
I think that there's a decision there to be made. I think that our soul has a decision. Like, do we stay earthbound? Like, is there work still to be done here?
No, I think that's just like you said. It's a decision, and I think it's the light thing is they're afraid of judgment.
Yeah.
But I also would hate to think if we went right to the light that we're automatically reincarnated, that we don't get time to spend. But I've read cases though, like what I brought up earlier about the kid he said he went to the light and boom, he right into the womb. Yeah. It's like, I don't want that.
No, I don't either.
No, I don't want that.
I don't either. But that goes back too, though, to like, what is his memory really? If only 20% of the kids that we can access are recalling vividly what's happening between life and death, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like I think for a lot of people, and again, I'm going to say it, I don't believe that every single one of us reincarnates. Like I think that you have to want to reincarnate for some reason. But yeah, if every single person was coming back, just back in, then I feel like that the memory would be better. I feel like there would be less of a struggle, because I feel like that's where it gets murky. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. If that makes any sense.
But you think you'd have to take, like, okay, you go up, everybody talks about a life review. okay, on our next life, here's what, you looked at your life. I need to work on this. And so, you know what I mean? So there would have to be some type of transition period that you could plan on. Because they say you pick your parents, you pick, whatever soul group you're with. So I would think you'd have to have that little bit of time to go, okay, you know what? I really didn't do good on the forgiveness thing. I got to go back. And work on that. And
that goes back to the case. Like I heard one guy say, like or I read it somewhere, like you never hear about reincarnation stories where they come back as the queen or the prince.
Yeah,
or,
it's usually a pauper.
Right. Yeah, and so it makes you think, like, do you make that decision and then you're just kind of thrust back in, and it's up to you to get it right.
Yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, it's fascinating.
It is.
Okay. So
talk about going down the rabbit hole on this.
Oh,
Man.
dude, I know. There seems to be something about dying violently and unexpectedly or dying young that is tied to reincarnation, but obviously we can't say that that's fact-based. Mm-hmm. It's just a lot of times, I think the age range was between like 15 and I forgot what it was. It wasn't old. Like you don't like have like, does that make sense? Okay.
Yeah.
Like when these people are remembering things.
Well, that goes back to saying possibly there are accidents that's like, oops, that wasn't supposed to happen.
Right.
We need to get him right back.
Right.
And with the same thought and the same plan for his life.
Or if the way in which you died was so unexpected and so violent that it's just seared into your memory more.
Yeah.
That could be another reason why the percentage is on that. Sometimes the kids are emotional and angry. For instance, a case in Thailand. This one's funny. So this, what the guy was saying was like sometimes most of the times the kids will have emotions, right? So like they'll be crying about a deceased brother that they don't currently have. And the parents are like, obviously, the kids have emotional problems, right?
Yeah.
And so, or they'll get angry, but oftentimes they'll recall something. Like a lot of times in America, what will happen is we'll get information from our kids when in a relaxed state. So like after a long car ride or after a hot bath, your kid will just start popping off about like, oh yeah, like Aunt Rick, or Aunt
Rick.
I was thinking like
Aunt Doug.
Aunt Debbie. They're all like their wires are crossed because they've reincarnated so many times. No, but they'll start like talking about those things in a relaxed state. But the moment they see like their favorite toy, they're gonna run over and start playing with it, right?
Yeah.
But there is some kids get angry. Right?
Well, that was talk about Ryan and the Hollywood thing. His mom said he'd constantly be angry about it. He goes, I want to go back to my big house with my swimming pool in the backyard.
Right.
And what the hell am I doing in this little modest home here in Oklahoma? I was in Hollywood, baby.
Yeah. Let's get back, baby.
So she said he would get really aggravated about not being in his big mansion. And I looked that house up on Google Maps. It's huge. It was a big home, big swimming pool. It's still there.
Yeah.
Built in
You're not learning your lesson.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, so in this one case, it's funny because it isn't funny, but it is funny. It's in Thailand again. These three friends go hunting, and one friend accidentally shoots the other friend and kills him. And then 4 years later, or two. Let's see here. I want to get this right. It was just shortly after. A boy is born in the village, and when he's 2 years old, he sees the man sitting down in a chair, and he runs over and climbs up on him and starts choking the shit out of him. It turns out he had the wound. He had already been talking about he was the guy that got killed in the hunting accident, and he sees that guy 2 years later when he's like, oh, there he is, and he runs up on him and starts choking his ass.
Oh my God.
So that's a little wild.
That's crazy.
That goes back towards like the mission. Maybe the mission can be whatever the hell you want it to be.
That's funny though. I mean,
I know. That's what I'm saying.
I feel bad laughing because the poor guy.
2-year-old, so.
Yeah, because the poor guy's getting attacked. He's like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah, like Drew's on top of me.
You
like,
killed me in my past life.
Yeah, it's like one of those shows. Yeah,
I was this close.
Is it Family Guy that has the little baby that wears
Stewie.
the suit?
Yeah, Stewie.
Yeah, so Stewie is definitely reincarnated. Okay, so other times kids are more matter of fact. Dude, I put this thing on mute.
Well, obviously you did not.
Where was I?
Other times kids are more.
They recall memories in passing. Okay, like I said, in a relaxed state. Although it is said that memories begin to fade around school ages of 5 to 7, recent studies have shown that adults who had early childhood memories of past lives were actually able to still recall memories in instances. So now that they have this database, they're actually able to track these people and to go back later on, and more people than they thought can actually recall their past life. Phobias. In 35% of these cases, a child will show immense fear in the mode of death from their past life. For instance, in a case with a little girl who was so terrified of water, it would take 3 adults to hold her down and give her a bath. And it was only until she could talk that she described another female from a village over who had died by drowning.
Wow.
Likes and dislikes. It seems like addictive tendencies can sometimes carry over to the next life. There have been some cases where kids try and drink liquors and do other things like smoke cigarettes at a very young age without knowing what the hell it is. They're just like,
boss baby.
Hey, where's that whiskey? Yeah, exactly. And foods. In Burma, there was a couple dozen cases where kids claimed to be Japanese soldiers that were killed in Burma in World War II and would complain about spicy Burmese food and ask for raw fish, which is what they eat in Japan. So these kids were reincarnated in Burma. They had died in World War II as soldiers. And when they were reincarnated later in time, they were complaining. They were saying, hey, we're Japanese soldiers, man. This stuff's too spicy. Give me some raw fish.
Yeah.
That's odd.
That is odd.
So if you guys ever reincarnate and your baby or kid like absolutely hates black olives, look for my mole. Cross-gender behavior. About 10% of kids in these cases claim to have been a different gender in the past life. A number of these kids will show early signs of gender confusion or gender dysphoria. Sometimes this confusion fades with memory, and other times it persists in adulthood. And you see cases where, maybe the boys want to wear mom's clothes, right? Like, and then just kind of grows out of it. Other times these carry on. With all these behaviors, we can see that not only memories are able to survive past lives, but also emotions and feelings, thoughts, ideas, and even grudges.
Yeah, I had a friend.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, I had a friend who he believes that, and it's one of those things I don't know if I should say.
Okay, hey, here.
Okay, never mind. We decided not good idea.
Yeah, it's okay. Hey, but that is a conversation Cass and I have had, by the way.
Yeah.
Yep. So, but I thought it was interesting about because early on I thought it's only memories that are tying us to life after life, but it's not, right? It's grudges and emotions. So, like a girl wakes up crying in the middle of the night and about a kid she had that died in the past, and she's like 4. And you're like, what are you doing? Why are you crying? Well, she carried over her emotions with her to this life. And so that's when her most vulnerable state, when those emotions are coming out. So pretty crazy.
That is.
You want to go through the stories? You want to go first?
No, go ahead.
Are you sure?
Yeah, no, go right ahead.
Oh, man, I feel like I've been doing a lot of talking.
Well.
Yeah, you weren't kidding. Okay. We will start with... We'll start because the first one was the 2 sisters. I'll actually circle back around to that. In Britain, a woman claims to be the past mother of 8 in Ireland. And this is on that little thing I sent you said you already watched. Okay, so at 36 years old, a female named Jenny claims to be the deceased mother of 8 children in Ireland. And her name in her previous life was Mary. Okay, she was having visions since she was a young child. That have stayed with her, and actually she was able to track down these brothers. And listen, I don't even need to read about this one. Here's what happened. Okay.
Yeah, where are you at? Because I'm not seeing that.
Down at the bottom right here.
Oh, you skipped this one?
Yeah. We already talked about that one. Okay, so what happens is this lady, Jenny, when she's a child, is having, and this is the girl I was talking about that was waking up crying. She had this desire or this despair that she had these kids that she was not taking care of in reoccurring dreams. And her mom felt helpless because she's like, what do I do? I mean, this is back in probably the 80s. And so her mom's like, I don't know what to do. Like, my kid's so emotional. It's a phase. She'll get through it. Well, she never really got through it. In fact, she would tell her mom that her name was Mary, and that she lived in a town that I forget what town it is, some small village in Ireland, and she's in England at the time. And so, and her name was Mary, and that she had died in a hospital in Dublin, and that she didn't know what happened to her kids, and she had 8 of them. And so this was so real to her, and it was like so embedded in her memory and in her feelings and in her emotions. Like the weight, she literally felt the weight of the uncertainty of what happened to her kids as a child, which is like bizarre, right? She's carrying this through her life. So when she's 36, she starts saying, you know what, the only way that I'm going to be able to feel better is if I see what this is all about. And they were, I believe they may have been Protestant. But so she goes and she starts tracking down these kids, man, in Ireland. She tracks down the oldest one first. And they're Roman Catholic, like I am, right? Mm-hmm. And he says that this lady knows the name of the town. So she goes there and pulls up to his house. And he's like standing out the window. He's a very old man. This just has happened like in the last probably 10 years. And he's like drinking coffee and he like looks over at his wife and he's like, some weird lady just got out of her car. She's walking up to the door and it looks a lot like my mom. And he's an old man now. And she comes to the door and claims to be his mom, Mary. And he's Roman Catholic. And so he's dubious at first. He's like, no, this can't be. You know, what are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. And then she starts telling him things that only he and she would know. Like this reoccurring dream she had where she was at the jetty and it was sprinkling and she was waiting for something. And it was never coming to her. And so she would give him that memory and then he would finish it by saying, oh, I was waiting on the steps. And so he said, my mother would wait for me at the jetty and I would take a boat across and, you know, that's how we would meet for school, after school every day. And so this went on and on where she would have something and then he would be able to verify it. And so went on to find the other 7 children, all 8 of the kids now in their 80s, 90s, consider Mary, who's 36, to be their mother.
Wow.
As Roman Catholics.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty fascinating.
That is
dude.
fascinating.
But it brings up the physical side of it, which I thought was interesting, how physically affected it was to her.
Right.
So
That's
hey,
interesting.
Go on. Go on now, Keith.
You still got 2 more stories.
No. We'll just alternate.
Oh, God.
Yours right there.
Okay, we already talked about Ryan. I only got a couple. This one I think is really fascinating. This is probably
Dude, the Ryan one was, that one's weird.
Yeah.
That is a weird one.
But James the pilot, that's one of the first children's stories that I ever heard of. So anyway, when James Leninger was a toddler, he started having vivid, reoccurring dreams about war. He explained to his parents, Andrea and Bruce, he was flying a plane that got shot down by the Japanese. At first, Andrea and Bruce were reluctant to believe their son was having such dreams. Bruce joked, baloney. But how does a toddler even know about World War II? Which we'll talk. Remember when that psychiatrist is going, well, he could have heard this from his friends. It's like, okay, what toddler talks about World War II?
Yeah.
So little boys love their toys. JD is obsessed with trains. James Leninger is a total plane fanatic. However, planes don't just provide hours of entertainment. They are sources of intense nightmares, James' mother said. Andrew told ABC News that she often woke up to her son's very urgent screams at all hours of the night. I'd wake him up and he'd be screaming, airplane crash, on fire, little man, can't get out. Andrea goes on to say that she once casually pointed out what looked like a bomb on one of James' planes while they were playing, and the child was quick to correct her and saying that it was a drop bomb. Andrea had never heard of this term. Andrea and Bruce took James to see a therapist. When the dreams appeared to worsen, therapist Carol Bowman believes the dead can be reborn in people, and that James is young enough age to experience a past life because, unlike older individuals, James hasn't been that conditioned to think certain things. Of course, critics argue the boy could have picked up details from the History Channel. Again, that's
Jesus.
You got a small kid.
I have
What small kid? A 2-year.
I have a 3-year-old and I have a 1.5-year-old. Get out of here with that.
They're watching children's shows. So the History Channel or textbooks, but then James revealed exact details of the plane he flew in World War II, telling his father it used to get flat tires, or even revealing the name of someone he once flew with. His name was Jack. Now, are you familiar with the story?
Yep.
It's so interesting.
Yep.
So next, he told his father he was killed in Iwo Jima, the result of a direct hit to his plane's engine. His father researched Iwo Jima, and it turns out the only pilot killed there was James, a man named James.
Man, that's shocking that only one pilot died in Iwo Jima, but go ahead.
And I think it was like right off of
The
just
coast,
right off the
yep.
coast,
Yep.
right? When I was your age, I changed. This is another. Anyway, that's where that story ends,
Dude, yeah.
But he knew, he was telling his parents at a very young age. He goes, "Oh, I flew a Corsair."
Yeah.
You know, Corsair's like,
Yeah.
I don't know. This is how old I am. I'm Baba Black Sheep, Pappy Boynton flew. They had a team of Corsairs. you
Okay.
know.
Yeah,
that was the World War II plane.
Right.
And so there's no way that this little kid.
No way, dude.
And not only that, he could name parts of the plane. He had just crazy memories of the attack. He knew exactly where he was hit on the plane. He took the plane and he showed it. And his buddy, what was it, James? Jack, yeah, was still alive. They contacted Jack, and he said, I was flying next to James when this happened, and he goes, the bomb hit the plane right on the left side, exactly where the boy pointed to on the plane. So even this Jack guy truly believes that this little boy is James.
Right.
The
absolutely.
Pilot,
yeah, absolutely. And I mean, he's super. At that time, he's probably passed on now, but was elderly and traditional and a World War II vet, and this kid convinced him of that. And what did the parents have to gain?
Yeah, exactly.
Like that psychologist was like,
well, they did write a book.
Yeah. I mean, dude, I tried to contact him on Instagram. They didn't get back to me. They didn't get back to me. But really, though, yeah, maybe even if they made like $20,000 off a book. I mean, you know, the amount of scrutiny they're getting.
Well, not only that. I mean, when you do the research, you track down Jack, and Jack confirms all these things that this little boy's saying is true. I mean, there's some validity there.
Well, and if you've spent time around little kids, like I'm telling you, man, you know how much time I spend around my little kids.
Yeah.
Like even on the videos of myself, you guys, I'm always like, get out from there.
Oh, by the way, I just got to say, I loved your when you was on the video. I think it was last week. You was going, I'm trying to talk to people.
yeah. I yelled at Cass last night. I was like, turn the Instagram down. I mean, can you imagine Cleo telling me the intricate parts of aerospace engineering? Like,
yeah,
that's bonkers.
Yeah, and
the
psychologists were trying to say, no, this kid heard this, but it's like, no, toddlers don't talk about World War II, parts of a plane, a Corsair. You know, it's just So I truly believe this kid was the pilot at that time.
I do too. Yeah, and you guys can look up the video of that. I think it was like 2020 or Dateline. Somebody did a story
it's all
on, like,
over.
60 Minutes maybe. Yeah.
His name's James Lesinger. Actually, me and Garrett, back in the day when we first started this channel, we were looking for him. We did find him, but we haven't contacted him yet. And he's also one of the boys who has absolutely no memory of that time now.
Right, yeah. That ship is sailed for him.
Yeah, other than what his parents has told him.
Hey, do me a favor really fast. I'm looking for, is there a page 3 for my stories here? I don't know. Maybe I just had 2. Okay. Hey, this next one was also on that, and I just wrote this up myself. I found a little outline of it just because I couldn't remember a lot of the names and stuff, but you'll be familiar with this one. This is about a girl named Purnima of Sri Lanka, and she was born with unusual birthmark dottings on her lower ribs and chest. And at a young age, she began speaking of her past life. After a school trip to a temple 145 miles away, I can't say. Purnima insisted she lived in a town across the river from the temple. She claimed she was once a male incense maker who died in a traffic accident. Purnima's father traveled with his brother-in-law to the town in question, which is called Kalinia. They asked around about local incense makers and found the name Jinadeza. Jinadeza had been an incense maker who died when he was hit by a bus while riding his bicycle. Purnima's family took her to Jinadesa's house, where she was able to identify his wife and daughter and name of the school Jinadesa attended. Purnima family had no prior contact or connections with Jinadesa's family. It is difficult to explain how she got such specific information correct. Then there were the birthmarks. Genadisa's autopsy report showed that he had actually multiple broken ribs. And so what happened was they actually manufactured 2 specific kinds of incense, and they were the only ones in the country that could actually manufacture those kind of incense. And so at a young age, Purnima would always mention the actual names of the incense, and her parents were like, how does she know about these incense? It's weird. And then she had that weird odd bizarre birthmark on her left ribs. Well, the kid Genadisa was actually delivering incense and got ran over by a bus and cracked his left ribs, which punctured his lung. Okay. The thing about it is when Dr. Stevenson took Purnima to the town, she actually gave them the directions. She knew exactly how to get to the house. She said the house is going to be sitting higher than the other ones because it was actually a different, in India there's caste system, right? Like different classes, social classes. And so the house was bigger. These were incense makers. They did pretty well. So it was even a different class. She was just from a small village. But she pointed out the house, went right up to the door, knew all the family members by name, and then actually pointed to the room where he would manufacture the incense and said, I want to go in there, because she wanted to smell the what was left of the incense.
Yeah.
So essentially he had reincarnated into this little girl and came back and was able to do all that. And then she's 12 now. This was when she was 5. She's probably 16 now. Still keeps in touch with the family. They go visit, and they kind of just, adopted her as their son daughter.
Yeah, God, I wish we could get like one of these people that we're talking about as a guest.
Right, because you would want to know, like, what do they believe? I mean, because she's in India, which Hindus and Buddhists believe in reincarnation. So
yeah,
you know what I'm saying. They're like way more open to it. So if a kid,
but get a kid here from the United States who were brought up that not to believe in reincarnation.
Right. Not only that, we're also brought up with American culture.
Right.
Like, I feel like in a place like India or a place like, I have a lot of friends that are Indian, like, Sam, my business partner, and like he goes to Burma and all these places, they're not like their little kids aren't on the cell phones all the time. Like, they're right. So they're more like there, if that makes sense. And so I feel like that they would be able to recognize reincarnation even without the belief of it, probably easier than we could.
Yep.
Hence why the numbers are probably down. But I would like to know what their thoughts on it are. Like,
I would too. I mean, and especially with that James guy, because that one's so fascinating to me, the pilot.
Right.
And I know he doesn't have, his memory's faded, but I'm sure
he has to.
He would have. Yeah.
He has to.
I wonder what his thoughts are.
He's seen the video of him like as a little kid on that 60 Minutes episode. That he.
And he was on Coast to Coast, or not? He wasn't. His parents were on Coast to Coast.
Oh, they did go on Coast to Coast.
Yeah, I think Randy mentioned that too. Yeah, I heard him on Coast to Coast.
Okay,
too.
so
hey, Randy. Hello.
Hey, and they admitted that they didn't come from a background or geographical area that necessarily believed in reincarnation.
Yeah,
and so it was hard for them to come forward.
Oh yeah. Yeah, because the dad especially.
Yeah.
He was just thought it was like you said. He thought it was all baloney.
Yeah. So, what do you make of the dust particles?
I don't know. I think everything, like when you cross over, people, like I watched something the other day where people had near-death experiences, and they went to this beautiful place in the flowers, but the flowers were singing to them.
Wow.
The flowers were talking. The grass was singing. Everything had some type of life to it, where they could communicate. You can communicate with everything that was on the other side.
Right.
So it's, I guess,
like LSD.
Well, I guess some people do have that experience, but yeah, I guess.
I mean, because that's one of the things, when they were doing the test with LSD back in the 70s, is they were trying to, people that were really they were thinking, is this a pathway to enlightenment? Is this a tunnel or vortex or something? And so,
yeah, that's another thing we need to just show on NDEs.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely.
In fact, maybe that should be our next show.
We'll talk about it.
We'll talk. That means Garrett doesn't really want to do it.
No. I would
we'll
love
talk
to,
about it
because I think it goes along the lines with this kind of stuff, man. I don't know.
Yeah.
What happens after you die? I don't know.
This one's kind of interesting, and I didn't get the person's name, so I apologize. But it just says this kid said, when I was your age, I changed your diaper, pointing to his dad. Dark-haired boy said to his father, Ron looked down at his smiling son, who had not yet turned 2. He thought it was a very strange thing to say, but he figured he had misheard him. But as baby Sam made similar remarks over the next few months, Ron and his wife, Kathy, gradually pieced together an odd story. Sam believed that he was a deceased grandfather, Ron's late father, who had returned to his family. More intrigued than alarmed, Ron and Kathy asked Sam, how do you come back? I just went whoosh and came out of the portal, he responded. See, that's what I was talking about too. We'll talk about it.
That's crazy, man.
Although Sam was a precious child, he'd been speaking in full sentences from the age of 18 months.
That's impressive.
His parents were stunned to hear him use a word like portal. Yeah. If you think about it, that's weird. And then they encouraged him to say more. They asked Sam if he had any siblings, and he replied that he had a sister who turned into a fish. And they go, who turned into a fish? Yeah, some bad guys. She died. Or eerily enough, Sam's grandfather had a sister who had been murdered 60 years earlier. Her body was found floating in San Francisco Bay. So, remember the Godfather? He sleeps with the fishes.
Yes,
Ron and Kathy then gently asked Sam, do you know how she died? And Sam jerked back and slapped the top of his head as if in pain. 1 year before Sam was born, his grandfather had died of a cerebral hemorrhage.
Wow.
Yeah, isn't that weird?
Wow.
So again, that kind of goes back to when we were talking about soul groups. Like next life, I'm going to be this person.
Right.
Like the world's a stage.
And so do you think that those other cases, like with Purnima, where she has no relation, that the chain has just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger to where, does that make sense? Because if the soul group theory is in play, then would she just not keep staying within her family and her class?
I don't know.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. But I think, I just think it can go other ways. I think you can have a soul group, or I think you can jump into maybe asked to go into someone else's soul group, I think we'll never know.
Right.
But I think it's endless of what you could come up with.
I think that's what Notorious B.I.G. said. You won't know till you know.
Yeah, that's true.
No, I get it. Yeah, for sure.
All right. Any interesting comments from
what's going on in the chat?
Of course there is.
A lot of it is just talking about free will and choosing to come back, choosing to continue on.
That's where I'm at.
I was kind of thinking the same thing about, if we do the soul group thing, why are we finding these cases, or why are they finding these cases where, like Purnima, where she if kind of fell outside her soul group.
Or Jenny.
But is that a situation of Purnima is becoming so enlightened that she is nearing nirvana
gradually? Yes, exactly.
And is probably
I
going
think
to
I
fall
read
away
the
from
chain's loosening. Exactly.
Eventually going to fall away from
as
the
you
soul
get out of the
group.
cycle, right?
Yeah, exactly right. Because I read something about as your soul elevates, you may go into a different soul group.
Right.
And so
got you.
there's different levels.
Yeah. That makes more
where
sense.
You're at.
It would make sense that you would continuously keep coming down into something that's more comfortable and growing into something that's more uncomfortable and challenging.
And that was something too that did come up in the chat, is that people who are closer to nirvana are seem to be not as wealthy, well-to-do, more basic.
Right.
That they're not into all the material things.
Right. So I think that's a big lesson. In materialistic things is just secondary. That's not what we're here for. We're not here to be rich and famous and all that. We're here to learn. I think love is the answer.
Purpose,
and the purpose of why we're here. Just unconditional love, forgiveness. I think is another big lesson to learn.
Absolutely,
is forgiving somebody.
Yeah, and I think purpose has a whole hell of a lot to do with it, though.
Yep.
Because it would be hard to you'd be a restless soul without purpose. You know what I mean? And without love and everything else you just mentioned. I like that theory, though. I mean, that's the one I definitely lean into, is that we keep becoming reincarnated and we start becoming more liberated, and our soul eventually becomes so enlightened that we don't need to be on this earth anymore. Our job is done. It's completed. We can become, and actually that's where Cass and I were going last night, is because we were talking about religion, and she was like, "Well, you know, like, okay, let's talk about the dinosaurs. Like, what was before them, and what was for this, and what was for that." And I was like, "And that's to me like what religion is. It's faith. So you have to like believe in it." So I was like, "So do you think that when you finally get out of the cycle of reincarnation and you do become dust, is it that's the universe expanding?"
I wonder if you become like a guide. Like once you get to where you want to be, there's like, okay, what I want to do is help this soul while he's on earth and be like a spirit guide.
That's cool. Yeah.
And so that would be, that would keep you busy all the time.
Yeah.
And then necessarily you wouldn't have to come back, but I guess you could if you still wanted to. But
right. Well, that goes
because
back
you
to
want
free will.
you want the highest level people. You want guiding you. You hope.
And you would think that would give credence then to the negative forces and the negative energies and then the negative entities that we've talked about in previous episodes, is because if you can decide and you can get to a place where you want to become a guide, if you believe that, then you got to believe that you can go the opposite way too. Like I don't think that you can have. I don't think you can have. Both, right? I don't think you can have the cake and eat it too.
Yeah.
So I can't believe that I can go one way and become a guide and become enlightened without believing that if I decided to go the other way, I then could become a negative entity. And does that make sense?
I'm a big believer that you can't have light without dark.
Right.
Because if you do, then what is light?
Right.
It doesn't mean anything
nothing.
without the opposite.
Exactly. Yeah. Absolutely. You said it way more simple than that was exactly.
No.
Yeah. No, that's exactly what I was trying to say.
Yeah.
But what do you think about the lesson? I mean, like, I'm going to come back and
way
be a
better.
murderer. I mean, and then again, we talked about the forgiveness aspect of it. But okay, what about a bank robber? And another thing I was thinking, I'm sorry.
No, I'm just thinking I can't buy into that because, in that respect, it's not me making my choices for my life.
Free will.
It's me
Being
telling you you're going to come down and murder me so that Garrett can learn a lesson in forgiveness.
Right.
Yeah.
So that puts me not just in charge of my soul, my life, but yours as well. And I can't buy that. I can't buy that.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's kind of what I was saying earlier about like the drunk driving, like that hypothesis is that like it doesn't make. I can't wrap my head around the fact that like your decision could impact my path. Right. I mean, although it does. I mean, there obviously.
I think it's got to be more generalized in the sense of, okay, there's souls out there that need to learn this lesson. So I'm willing to play the heavy this go round. I'm willing to be the drunk driver who hits somebody to help, but I don't think you can say, I'm going to hit Pam's car so that Garrett learns a lesson. I think you're just randomly out there and you hit whoever you hit.
So do you think that like every single person on Earth is a reincarnated version of somebody else? Like, what if as humanity we were like, okay, nobody reincarnate. Let's see what happens.
No, I don't think so. Because
I don't either. I was just curious.
Think there have to be new souls coming into existence.
Yes, absolutely.
Because as those old souls
Right.
reach nirvana, then there's got to be something new to come in.
So, is it crazy for me to tie that into the expansion of our universe?
No, I heard you say that just a second ago, and that makes sense to me.
Okay.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah, that would be like
What about, and this is something I've thought about, because
quantum mechanic shit.
Huh?
So it's like some quantum mechanic shit.
Yeah, quantum physics.
Yeah.
But like, as me being a therapist, for instance, because I always think about, we all have a purpose on life,
Right.
and then our life comes to an end, But
Inevitably.
why? Like, I have one patient, or I did. I haven't worked there in a while, so I don't even know she's alive. But she had horrible dementia. So for 3 years, she just wandered the halls. And I was thinking, asking God, like, at this point, God, what's her purpose?
You?
Yeah, for me to, and I did work with her.
Right. And so, because. Oh, go ahead.
But, I mean, there's only so much therapy you can do with a demented or a person has Alzheimer's because there's no carryover.
It's not about her learning. It's about you learning.
Right. But so why didn't she just die after I got finished with her?
Because there was somebody else that needed
Right.
to learn
Maybe it was the lady that had to change her diapers. Maybe it was the lady that was working at the office that took the calls from her family.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've told you this before. I was an Apple major at West Point. Okay, so Apple was art, philosophy, and literature, and I was a focus in philosophy. And I remember having a philosophy class. And again, this is with like 15 cadets. There was only 30% of us majored in that. So very, very few people majored in this, right? Like, and so these conversations would be very intimate, and a lot of it was like philosophy of war, and the thing about abortion came up. And I'm not going to get into a topic of abortion, but the philosophical discussion happened, and somebody brought up, because I have a twin brother that severely handicapped. He has a brain capacity of a 3-week-old, right? He's born with hydrocephalus. And, and so... And that's when I had my opportunity to say, well, Nate's purpose, I don't know. Like, what's going on in his head, since we've never been able to communicate that. He could be in a state of euphoria, and I have no idea. But what I do know is that he's had a profound effect on the people around him. So, like, and I read a book called A Difference in a Family, which is amazing. And that's kind of what their point that they get to is like, his purpose isn't going to be to fly an airplane or to come up with some theorem that's going to end the pandemic.
It had to be for, like Pam said, as someone else's.
Right, yeah, exactly.
But you know what's weird? I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. But even before you and I knew each other, my sister took care of Nate.
I know, that's so bizarre.
She was a nurse.
He impacted a lot of people. I mean, if you go read the story, like there's a story they wrote on the family.
Yeah, because she's like, when I brought up Garrett and he has a disabled brother, she goes, oh my God, she goes, I love Nate.
Yeah.
I was like, what are you talking about? She
Insane,
goes, she goes, I took care of him at the nursing home.
Every home he's been in, because, we couldn't take care of him. And so, but the nurses were always like really like just over the top with him. And so, like, I've thought a lot about reincarnation and stuff like that, like even with Nate. Like, we have no idea what's going on inside of there. So,
see, I think personally that people like Nate, people like Derek,
tell him who Derek is.
Derek is a son that Keith and I had that fell between our oldest, which Cassidy is actually his. I claim her, but she's actually his. I did not get to genetically contribute to that one. But there was a boy between our 2 oldest girls together. And we found out early on in the pregnancy that he was diagnosed with a severe genetic disorder. And basically the phrase we kept hearing over and over repeatedly was, this is a condition that is, quote, not compatible with life.
Right.
So, we did a lot of research on our own, both being medical people. We made a determination, a conscious choice for us in our family situation at the time. And, I'm not saying it was easy, and I'm not asking anybody's permission or forgiveness, but we made a conscious choice to stop that pregnancy.
Right. Yeah.
We felt like it was in the best interest of the family that we
and
had.
that's the way it should be, right?
Under the circumstances.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, believe you and me, Pam and I both being in the medical field, I mean, it'd have been an MR kit, of course, we would have had the MR kit or whatever. But we, like I said, we didn't take this lightly. We were up till 2. I mean, research. Is there a chance he can live? Is there a chance he can live? And we just didn't find. I mean, it was like they might live from anywhere from a few hours, to 2 weeks. But the doctor also said, well, he'll go to ICU. We'll have to probably put him on oxygen and all that. And it's like, I can't. As a parent, watch him go through that.
Right, yeah. And
knowing that, what the outcome was.
See, and that's the crazy thing about our situation is my parents had no idea.
Yeah.
They didn't even know.
Yeah.
But it's 1985.
Right.
They were like,
different time.
Yeah.
But in my mind, and this kind of goes back to that phrase of everything happens for a reason.
Yep.
But for me, the tail end of that phrase is, and we may never know what that reason is.
Right, true, yeah.
I think... For me, what helps me cope and justify that situation is kids like Nate, kids like Derek, I think are already this close to nirvana.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I truly believe
I completely 100% agree.
I think they're already there. Old souls that...
I 100% agree.
They teach people.
Absolutely.
They teach people how to interact with love and kindness,
and
without
compassion.
Compassion without ever saying a word.
And to think about life.
Yeah.
Like in that situation, that's what you guys were. You guys didn't only have to think about his life and your life, but you also have to think about the life of your extended family, and you have to call into all these questions just from that act. And so,
well, and that's the thing. We had Cassidy, we had Katie, and had we had Derek, how much time would he have pulled away from his older sisters?
Absolutely,
So for us, and knowing that, how do we choose to continue to fight for this or not fight for this? For us, we put a lot of thought and a lot of heart into it, and we felt like for us the best option was to not continue this.
Yeah.
And me as a hospice nurse, Keith as a therapist, both felt like, or I personally felt like I could not do anything less for my own child than I would do for one of my patients. Now that does not mean I euthanize patients. I don't. But I was not willing to do things to extend his life that weren't going to improve his quality of life, not his quantity.
And you're getting into like ethics, like it became like an ethical thing,
right? It was, and in fact, when we
it was
when it came to making that decision, it wasn't just doctor presented, okay, here are some choices you're going to have to make. If you decide to end the pregnancy, we need to go this way. If you decide to continue the pregnancy, you need to decide then, are we going to go a natural birth, because there's a good possibility you won't survive natural birth? Do you want to have a cesarean section done? How aggressive are we going to be with, trying to maintain his life, that kind of thing. And so for us, it just really became a matter of, what more are we going to gain? And
what more can we give?
Yeah. And so for us, it felt like in our situation, and I certainly won't, fault anybody else for making a different choice, because a lot of people do. But for our situation and us personally, we just felt like the most loving thing we could do would be giving.
Right. Well, and I think what's interesting about like this entire conversation that we had about Derek and Nate is like the word like decision just kept coming up over and over and over again. And for me, that's the ultimate test of everybody's life.
Right.
It's like, what am I going to decide to do when I get up? How am I going to decide to treat this person?
Right. And honestly, Garrett, had we been in a situation where had Derek been a twin and his twin was fine.
Right. Who knows?
We're going as long as we can.
Right.
Yeah. To try to save the one.
Right.
Hopefully, it won't make things that much more difficult for the other, but
right.
I mean, and I can't imagine, but that's, for me, that's when I say the thing about, everything happens for a reason. In the 20 plus years since Derek has been gone, we have, or I have anyway, never met face to face, but I have talked to at least 3, and I want to say 4 different families, where I shared my experience because they discovered that they were carrying a child with the same genetic disorder. Right. And the doctor had kind of put them in that position of, here you are.
Right.
Here are your options. You can go this way or you can go this way. And there were so many things that I experienced, or Keith and I experienced, that doctors don't think to tell parents.
Absolutely. Right. Right.
So I talked to a couple different, like I said, about 3 or 4 different families over the years. And for me, that's one of the things that has given Derek's life purpose.
Absolutely.
Is that even though we didn't get to keep him, it put me in a position to be able to help somebody else in a similar situation.
Well, and I think that's the most important thing is like, because you know where I stand on these kind of things. I'm like, individually, like whatever's best. But I love how you put earlier that like circumstances like this, maybe they're that much closer to Nirvana. And the impact that, because I've known about Derek all these years since I've known you guys, and so but the impact that Derek had is lasting.
Yeah.
And so maybe that was his last gift to everybody, man.
Right.
And he's able to be released. So
and
I
even
think that's
the backlash that Pam and we had when she got admitted, there's like a nurse that said, "Well, I'm not participating in this," and so she
Get out of here.
So we had we had to wait for them to find another nurse that would be willing to go with this process, because of her religious beliefs, and that's fine,
Yeah, for sure.
But
for sure.
at the same time, I felt so bad for Pam driving around, and then you see these churches going, "Abortion kills,"
Right, yeah.
but they don't understand the circumstances of it. It's not like we're just we just don't want a baby.
Yeah, this was a very planned, very
very wanted pregnancy, and we did everything we could to think, okay, can we make this work?
Well,
Is this baby, and it was just like there was almost like 0% he had a chance to survive.
It made you guys better people and better parents for your other kids, man. You know what I mean?
Well, I think so. I think so in a way. It's been an interesting process. We've got 2 rainbow babies now.
Yeah.
That are
We got a rainbow baby.
Yeah, young adults, and but we also have the 2 older girls who have experienced that kind of loss, and I'm a big believer that if you're old enough to ask questions and you're old enough to have a relationship with somebody, a situation, a circumstance, then you're old enough to grieve at whatever level you are.
Yeah.
And Katie especially, who was 2.5 when we lost Derek, for years I watched her as she would pass through the next developmental stage. She would re-grieve that loss.
Right, yeah, for sure.
And now that she's become a young adult, she's at a stage in her life where it's something that, I experienced that. Yeah, it was hard, but I think it makes her a better person too for having gone through that, and it makes her have a better understanding of other people around her.
Yeah, definitely. No, absolutely.
And I think probably the same way for Cass.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely.
That it just allows you to have a better understanding, and this is a way off track from our reincarnation topic.
It's really not. It's really not though. Honestly, to me, it's like right on track because it goes. We're using the word purpose earlier, and then we were using the word decisions a lot.
Yeah.
And so in this life, we have to make decisions, and from what I believe is that when we pass on, we have to make a decision.
That was the hardest decision, don't you think, we've ever made in our lives? Of being together, and not only that, but in our whole lifetime.
Yeah, absolutely. But I will say, when you talk about purpose and decision, and we talk about us being faced with, we had to make the choice. But I believe that Derek made a choice as well.
For sure.
Because when we went
That's a great way to look at it.
To start the procedure, and the doctor started the initial dose of medication, because at this point I was far enough along that this is not a simple surgical procedure.
Right.
I actually had to go through delivery.
Yeah.
So, which thank God, I was grateful for that. I don't know the experience for Keith. I can't imagine, because what a helpless feeling to watch somebody you love go through that.
I can't imagine.
I'll share this with the audience. This is the hardest thing for me, and try not to choke up, but was when the doctor put the stethoscope on the baby.
Yeah.
I bet that was,
yeah. And he's this tiny little thing that you can hold in one hand.
Yeah.
But as I started to say, when the doctor came in and started the initial medication to start the labor process, and she examined me, and she said, "Oh, you're already starting to dilate." So that right there was an indicator of something that they had told us was a possibility, that this pregnancy might not even go to term.
Right.
So for me, that made a really tough choice a little bit easier to handle, because it sounded like the pregnancy was probably going to come to an end anyway.
So what you said earlier is like the decision had already been made.
Right.
That it was going to be
in the cosmos.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So
and
I think
the test wasn't for Derek; it was for you guys.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. It's just a fascinating way to look at it.
And the crazy thing too, I don't know if this had anything to do with anything, but I remember holding Derek. We got to hold him for a while, and when Dylan was born, looked identical.
Did he?
To me, he
Yeah.
looked identical
See, a lot
to
of
Derek.
a lot of that day for me was a little bit of a blackout. We
Yeah.
had a little faux pas with the epidural that they put me on that
Of
I didn't
course.
think I needed, but they thought I
Yeah.
needed, trying to make my experience less miserable than it was going to be, because it was
Yeah.
going to be
Yeah.
miserable
Yeah,
regardless
yeah.
under the circumstances.
Because I almost wonder if it was Dylan, and then he reincarnated into our son that we had later.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
Me and Cass
but-
have talked about that with like our
we've kinda
situation
wondered,
too.
because I knew Keith would not say he knew, but I knew I was going to have 3 kids.
Yeah.
I knew.
Well, that's what you told me that before.
Yeah. And he, I think, was pretty much done
Yeah,
after
yeah.
Taylor
Yeah.
came
Yeah.
along, and we love Taylor, but I knew there was one more
Right.
out there.
Yeah. That's so wild. Mother's intuition, man.
Dylan is our only son, the youngest of the 4, had we not gone through the experience with Derek, we wouldn't have Dylan.
Right.
Taylor would have been our last one. There's
Yeah.
not a doubt in my mind.
That would suck.
So
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
as hard as that was, Dylan's worth it.
Yeah.
Oh
he
yeah,
is.
I mean, by the grace of God, you
Dylan's
can't,
worth it.
you can't, I wanted a boy so bad, and
Yeah.
so we were so blessed that that last baby was a boy,
Right, so crazy,
because we
dude.
talked about, okay, if it's a girl, we're done,
Yeah.
even if it's a girl, we're done,
Yeah.
but no, so God blessed us, we had a boy,
Right. Yeah.
and it turned out fine.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
And yeah, Dylan looked like Derek.
Yes,
Wow.
Dylan as a baby looked identical.
Right.
Besides, Derek unfortunately has some deformities.
Right. Of course.
about him.
Of course. Yeah.
But I mean, but the face,
Right,
everything.
yeah.
It was just, it was weird. It was strange.
This whole conversation, I think this has been one of our best shows.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah, it was good. It's I like, and the true crime thing's fun, but the parent, like I said, the reason why I started this was I can comfortably just talk about this without, we can read a story, but with true crime, it's like all the research you and I have to do,
yeah.
and you want to get it correct, because then you got the other YouTubers going, well, that didn't happen, you're wrong about that, But this, we can just sit here and we can talk, because I've been interested in this since I was a kid.
Asking the big questions, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, but and even though the view, we definitely, we don't get the views we do when we do true
I don't
crime.
even care.
We got true crimes in the 6,000, 10,000 views, and like our last show, I'm not even sure it hit 350 yet.
Yeah.
But I don't care.
Yeah.
It's like this, we're gonna grow, and
This is a really important.
and people, please share, like, and subscribe,
And comment.
and comment and tell your friends, because that's this whole thing, like I say, which I know I'm repeating myself, is what happens to us when we die. I love talking about that. Love it. I like, it's so interesting to me.
Well, and
So
reincarnation really throws a wrench in what a majority of the people around us believe. So
it does, but it's okay. I mean, I do think we come down and we experience many lives for lessons. I am a believer in reincarnation.
Whew, man, it's a lot to unpack. I'm gonna have trouble sleeping tonight, I think.
Why?
Mine's
Going over
racing,
here.
dude. Mine racing.
Yeah. Talking about the old soul, young soul thing, it just made me think of our 4 kids. I think Dylan's the oldest soul.
Mm,
Yeah, mate. Yeah.
I think Dylan's
Probably.
the oldest soul.
that's interesting.
And maybe that's because that's the only way he's going to survive having 3 older sisters.
Probably.
Yeah. Well, he's such a loving kid, and he's one of these kids that you can ask him to do anything, and there's no argument.
None.
None.
Love it.
Well, and
Not that it makes him an old
Right.
soul, but it's like he has a lot of love. He's very compassionate for people.
But even think about it, when Dylan was 5 or 6 years old, I want a fedora hat.
Yeah.
I want to wear dress shoes.
I
I want to
wanna-
wear a dress jacket.
I want to learn the Michael Jackson dance
pocket
perfectly.
watches.
Yeah,
We
he
have a
loves
lot
pocket.
of-
Yeah.
know.
I want to pick locks.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was a thief.
Yeah.
In a previous
Dude,
life.
he's-
No, but that-
he's helped me a couple of times. Honestly, I call him up. Hey, can you come
Yeah.
get this lock? for
Yeah,
me?"
that's true. He did. I mean, as a little kid, my son wanted a fedora. He liked the vest,
He
and
did,
the
yeah.
dress slacks. and he looked like someone from the 30s. You know, that kind of look, and like Pam said, the pocket watches, you know.
Yeah.
He obsessed making sure he had a pocket watch.
Yeah.
That's
You
so
know,
amazing.
so I
does
think-
he have any birthmarks?
He does on his arm.
Yeah.
It's like right in here. And because
Is he a
I
heroin
mentioned
addict in his past life?
no, maybe he was stabbed in the arm. I don't know. Or shot in the war. I don't know.
But Taylor actually has the same type of birthmark on her butt cheek.
Damn, she got shot in the ass.
Ow. Yeah.
You know,
That shot in the
explains a
butt.
lot.
It does. And the more sun they get, the more
Cass-
prominent
Cass
they
has
become.
one right here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't have any birthmarks I know of.
I do. Harry.
Yeah, I know. What do you have any?
Yeah, I've got one on my ribs that my mom had.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That's weird. All right. Well, it's about that time.
Man, good job.
Yeah.
Good job, Emma.
Great.
That was awesome.
Do we want to give them a heads up on what next week's going to be?
We don't know what next. What did we have on schedule? 'Cause
What we had on schedule was to go back to true crime next week and discuss the Ellen Ray Greenberg case.
the what?
Ellen Ray Greenberg.
Ellen. Okay.
But
We'll talk about it.
But we may.
Let's have a meeting. Quick meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have a meeting about it.
We'll discuss and
you guys put comments. Leave comments what you want us to do a show on. Like Mona put Reincarnation. We did that. We did.
Yeah.
Melinda wanted Black-Eyed Children, and we did that one. So yeah, give us some ideas. So that way we can kind of get a schedule, and we can tell you every week, okay, well, we're going to do this.
Right.
So
and I don't know how Keith feels about this, but if you guys are interested or want to know the entirety of Derek's story, let us know. I'll be happy to do a video about that and share the details of that situation with you. And if it again helps somebody out,
yeah,
I'm good with it.
You know, I wanted to mention something too. I just remembered. This is before we were married. Cass was like, I don't know, 4 or 5 years old maybe, and I remember being in the hallway and I heard this music from the 20s, and I went into her room and she had dressed like a flapper.
Wow.
And she was doing like that flapper dance, and I had a video camera at the time. Like, remember those giant ones that sit on your shoulder?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh my God, what is this? You know, and she was doing these flapper moves. She put on like this long flowing kind of dress, and she was, you know, and she'd found this music, this 20s, 30s kind of sounding music, and just doing, and as I was thinking to myself, she was back in the 20s.
We've been called
Because
old
she would
souls
have
together
no
a lot.
She would have no idea how to do the dance, but she was doing those little moves with her hands and her feet, and it
Not
was
surprising.
It freaked me out a little bit. I was like, "Oh my God!" But somewhere I've got a VHS tape of that.
Awesome,
that
dude. I'd love to
I
see
filmed
that.
of it. Yeah.
Someone mentioned something about true crime with a paranormal side to it.
Yes.
We have looked for those guys, and man, they're hard to find.
Let us
They
know.
are.
Let us know. Let us know. Please,
So,
please, please.
yeah, if
I
you
would love
guys
If you
that.
know
of
one.
any, please
I would
let
love
us
that.
know.
Yeah.
Please let us know. The closest we can come are some cases where kind of like the ritualistic Satanism kind of thing is the closest we've been able to come. And then that's not really necessarily paranormal, but more a mental health issue, I think.
What the? I'm sorry, I was reading
The Elisa-
chats.
Yeah.
Elisa Lamb. Yeah,
No, no,
that was mental illness.
Yeah.
We weren't talking about the Elisa Lamb one.
Shut up.
Gotcha. Whatever.
Anyway.
Okay.
Hey, I think that they know that we'll talk about just about damn anything, won't
Yeah.
we?
Yeah, we will.
Yeah, we will.
And
Great show, guys.
Yep. I'm willing
Hey,
to shed a
Soul,
tear. and
Soul Group,
Soul Group.
great
Right
show.
on.
Yeah.
100%.
Right on.
100%.
Right on, right on. Thank you, chat.
Yes,
Thank
thank
you,
so
guys.
much.
Welcome to the Soul Group.
Welcome to the Soul Group. I love that.
Hey, that's you know what? If that's what we should call our people, the Soul Group.
Yes, we got
Right?
the Soul Group. Yes.
If we ever do a Patreon, you pay $5 to be in the Soul Group. Which reminds me, the monetization thing, we're still kind of seeing how that's going. I think I don't understand it, to be honest with you. I saw earnings of first I saw $12.50, and then when I went to AdSense, that's where you have to do your commercials, was like $1.92. or something like that. So I don't know. To me, if I'm seeing it, this may not be quite worth it to have, a bunch of commercials.
I don't want a commercial on this show.
Right.
We just did. That was amazing.
I finally figured it out. I was like, why are they showing all these commercials at the first of the show, and that half of it they don't have it? Well, what it is, if you look at the analytics of it, that the attention span for our show is about 23 minutes.
Forget about it.
And then, so what they're doing is they're putting every one of those commercials in that 23 minutes because they think, okay, well, people are going to shy off here after 23. So, yeah, we're thinking about just doing away with it. But it does, if you guys Cash App us or PayPal, I mean, I don't want to be here and begging, but it does help with the show. Or Super Chat helps Garrett and I. And, we put a lot of research in it. I mean, we spend lots of time, especially these true crime ones. I might just start charging people for true crime. No, I'm just joking. But anyway, anything helps.
Make you a hitman?
Yeah, and like I said, the ink is the biggest thing.
Because we print everything off.
Yeah, in fact, we're probably going to need another ink cartridge here.
All right, I'll get it.
So, what are you doing?
I was giving everybody a peace sign.
Oh, okay. Very good.
I love our soul group, man.
We have good folks here.
We do.
For sure. I'm trying to get to, there it is.
I love that, by the way.
Yeah, isn't that cool?
Well done, dude.
Yeah, I wish I could say I designed that.
I bet Pamela picked that.
No, actually, I did.
Oh, that's surprising.
All right, good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
We love you guys. Thank you so much.